Hey guys, Programming Made Easy here. This is video 2 of the Learn Java tutorial from scratch. So today we're going to go over variables and data types. So this video is going to cover a lot of entry-level vocabulary that is needed for most computer science programming languages. So Java is what's called a typed programming language. An example of a non-type programming language is Python. And so this refers to how you define what are called variables. So a variable is just a container that stores some type of value, and these containers are just a named area that's allocated memory for this said type. So I have some comments here in a blank project so we can kind of visualize what's going on. So I have these questions, and the first one is, what is your name? So we're going to create variables for all these different questions, and then at the end use our previous knowledge from the last video about console output to share this information to the screen. So there are what are called primitive data types in Java and non-primitive data types. So what do I mean by that? So primitive data type is something like your age. It's a number, and that is what's called an integer. So to define a variable, all we're going to do is something like this. You first specify the type, so it is an integer because that is our age. We're going to define it with a name. The name parameter comes next. We're going to call it age in this case because it's asking for our age. And my age is 20. Okay. Now, another primitive data type is what's called a double or a floating point number. So doubles or floating point numbers, we're going to think of these as the same right now. They're just decimal numbers. So something that looks like, 3.0, 3.1, etc., etc. So we're going to define one here. It's going to be a double, right? So we specify the type first when we're defining a variable. And then that basically, behind the scenes, if we're looking at it from a systems perspective, basically that is allocating the space for that specific amount of bytes that the variable takes up. So in this case, we're allocating the space needed for a double in memory. And we're going to remember this. This container in memory is going to be called GPA. And I believe my GPA is something around like 3.6 or 3.7. Okay, so another primitive data type is called the Boolean. And the Boolean basically only has two states, true or false. And that's why I put this are you enrolled T or F question. So we're going to name the variable or the container. We're going to name it is in school. How I'm making these letters uppercase is called camel casing in programming, and that's a typical style thing that most programmers do. And so we're going to use our assignment operator, and I'm enrolled in school, so it's just going to say true, and it's all lowercase. Note that this is all lowercase. In some languages it's uppercase, but Java, all lowercase. Same with false. False. Okay. So now that we have all of our primitive, what are called primitive data types, we need to look at a non-primitive data type. These are also known as reference types, or in Java, we usually just think of these as objects. And these objects can be, things that you create, or they can be like strings or arrays or other type of data structures that are built into Java that are more complex. So we're gonna just create a new string here. A string is a sequence of characters, and characters are a primitive data type. So a character is just one letter or special character, etc. But it's just one. So sequence, to define a sequence, we need what is called a string, and that's an object. So we're gonna make a string here. We're gonna call it name because it's asking for our name. And we're going to make this equal in double quotes. Make sure we put our ending semicolon to make sure it indicates the end of line. And we're going to just type my name here. Okay, and now that this is done, we have all of the information needed to output this to the screen. So if you remember from the last video, we used that handy shortcut systemout.println in order to print things to the screen. But today we are going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do system.out.print, but we are going to say printf. And basically this allows us to output data from variables or other saved objects that we have into a string to the console. So what we're going to say is basically we're just going to reiterate all this information into a string, or just a couple pieces of it actually, just for simplicity of the example. So we're going to say my name is, and then we use what's called a format specifier. So this interprets, the compiler will interpret the data type of this variable. So basically this is saying my name is, and then we're expecting some string to be given to us later that is a variable. So in our case, it'll be programming made easy. And then here's where we're going to do another format specifier. This one is going to be %d to specify some sort of number for decimal, d for decimal. And this then will import that. So then we have to pass the compiler those objects or primitive data types. So for the first one, we need to pass it an object because it's a string, right? So we're going to give it the name. And then the second one, we're going to need a primitive type, and we're going to pass it our age. So then this will then output, my name is Programming Made Easy, and I am 20, and I'm going to put years old. So then if we run this by clicking our little run button, we're going to see my name is Programming Made Easy, and I'm 20 years old, exactly what we thought. So guys, with that being said, you just learned about variables and data types in Java. Hope this video was useful. Subscribe for more videos.